Tabuta. The person who probably spent the longest time in jail was Reverend Paris's slave, Tabuta. Paris had reneged on his promise to pay for her release, and she was locked up for about 13 months until a new master bought her for £7 sterling around May 1693. It's quite a bargain. The average price for a slave fresh off a slave ship from Africa that year was £26.02 sterling. Tabuta's unknown owner might have bought her husband, John Indian, too. There are no record to tell us what happened to either one of them after that. Little Dorcas Good, the 4-year-old daughter of convicted witch Sarah Good, had always been a perfectly healthy, normal child. But after she was shackled in heavy irons in a stinky, dung-filled, lice-infested stone prison for 8 long months, and after receiving barely enough to eat or drink, and being terrified by jailers and so-called witches and a slew of other criminals, and after she was coerced in accusing her mother of witchcraft, after crying her eyes out when her mother was carted off to be hanged, and by the time Salem man finally paid her bond so that she could be released from jail, it was too late. She had gone insane. Sarah Osborne. Jail fever ran rampant among the prisoners, and at least 6 adults and 1 suckling infant died in prison. The infant was Sarah Good's other child. Sarah Osborne, the sick old woman who was among the first 3 people accused of being a witch, died of the fever in prison. Mary Watkins. In July of 1693, a suicidal maidservant named Mary Watkins was freed pending her payment of her jail fees. Watkins had been accused as a witch after she accused her mistress. By July, she didn't have a penny to her name and couldn't pay her fees. So when August finally rolled around, she was more desperate than ever to be free. Maybe Tabuta's way out would work. She could file a petition to be sold. According to Robert Callep's written account, she was continued for some time in prison and at length was sold to Virginia, where she became an indentured servant. Philip and Mary English and their heirs. In 1693, wealthy Anglican merchant Philip English and his pregnant wife Mary came home to Salem only to discover that High Sheriff George Corwin had run off with everything they owned. There were no sheep on their land, no ships in their harbor, and no family portraits in their parlor, and no wine in their wine cellar either. English was able to go back to his shipping business anyway, since he still had a few ships hidden away at sea. But soon after she gave birth to a son, Mary died. English filed claim after claim to get his property back, but when Sheriff Corwin died, the executors of Corwin's will gave English only £60 sterling for items he had listed as being worth well over £4,000 sterling. In today's money, £60 will be worth about $3,000, and £4,000 will be worth about $200,000. But English property was really worth considerably more money than that. Besides other items, English had originally owned 21 ships, not counting the ones that were hidden at sea. His stolen ships alone must have been worth an enormous fortune. English heirs eventually received £200 sterling from the General Court as tiny restitution for everything he had lost. Elizabeth Proctor, Sheriff Corwin's other victim, received even less help than English. The prosperous Proctor family was completely ruined. After John was hanged, Elizabeth Proctor was freed from jail with her newborn baby, but she never got one bit of her property back. A fake will disinherited her, and the court offered little help because she had been accused as a witch and was dead in the law. It was not until December 1711 that General Court granted Proctor's relatives £578 and 12 shillings. Mary Diedrich. Rich people weren't the only ones who were robbed. Mary Diedrich lost her bed and cooking pot, everything she owned, and she had no way to earn a living. The family of George Burroughs. When Burroughs was arrested for witchcraft in Maine, his third wife sold everything he owned, even the books in his library, and loaned out the money for interest. Then she fled with her own baby girl, leaving Burroughs 7 other children behind to fend for themselves without a cent. At the time, the oldest boy was only 16. Wars were raging all around them, and papers that proved they owned the land in Falmouth had been burned along with the town. About 20 years after Burroughs was hanged, the government awarded his children some money as compensation for his wrongful death. Salem Village, Salem Town, and the future. It would take another 300 years But on May 9th, 1992, the state of Massachusetts, the city of Salem, and the town of Danvers, originally known as Salem Village, finally dedicated a memorial in honor to the slain witches.